Presenting The Eyes of Texas, Interstate Surveillance and Bodily Autonomy in Amarillo.
Hi, thank you everyone. My name is Olivia Trabysh. I'm glad you all have a drink. Wiggle your toes. My content is a little bit intense, so I just want you to feel it in your body, and I'm doing that reminder to myself as well. So today I'm going to talk to you about my research on interstate surveillance and bodily autonomy. I want to begin with this monument, patients created in the bathroom of a Planned Parenthood in Florida. Its 6-week abortion ban went into effect 2 weeks ago. Amongst the messages written on the walls are sentiments like this one. Characteristic of people who traveled many hours from other southern states to receive critical care. I traveled 5 hours because of laws in my state. My body, my choice, we matter. Traveling long distances to access abortion care is something pregnant people from the Panhandle of Texas have understood for a long time. Before Roe was overturned in 2022, people from Amarillo, noted here by this red dot, had to drive over 300 miles to access abortion care. Despite having as many as 18 Planned Parenthoods in the region in the 1980s, no local clinic would perform abortions. After Roe was overturned 2 years ago, the complete lack of access that had long been the reality of people from the Panhandle became the reality for all Texans. The reason Amarillo did not have local access to an abortion clinic is because it's a transportation corridor. This sounds counterintuitive. Yes, people with uteruses could get on the interstate to gain access to care, but the reason Amarillo didn't have a clinic that would perform abortions locally was because of federal statutes that regulated women's bodies built into its surrounding highways. Amarillo is surrounded by highways because it's home to Pantex, the only production facility for assembling and disassembling atomic bombs in the United States. In the weeks following Pearl Harbor, highways in the region were expanded and reconfigured to transport military equipment. This persisted throughout the Cold War. Abortion became legal during that time, but Amarillo embodied the qualities of its built environment, expansionism and evangelicism, two forces equally prominent in shaping the surveillance of American highways today. In 1873, Congress deputized anti-vice and Puritan crusader Anthony Comstock to suppress the circulation of women's health literature on America's postal roads. This piece of legislation became known as the Comstock Act. 50 years later, in 1916, Congress passed its first federal act to expand postal roads into highways. This linked the surveillance of women's bodies to highways and interstates. As highways expanded, the first birth control clinic opened later that year. Here's a photo of it with mothers clamoring outside with their baby carriages. The clinic shuttered within 10 days under the surveillance apparatus Comstock had created. Congress eventually removed references to contraception in the act in 1971, but maintained the link between the Postal Service, highways, and abortion surveillance. Today, anti-abortion activists and MAGA Republicans are using that remaining link as a potential backdoor to a federal abortion ban. Later this month, this group of men will vote on a petition to make Amarillo a sanctuary city for the unborn. This petition ordinance uses Comstock as the legal basis to institute further abortion restrictions on top of the state's abortion ban. The ordinance prohibits the use of medication abortion and interstate travel for abortion. If someone is suspected of getting an abortion, anyone who assists them, either by delivering mail, driving them, funding them, or providing care, is subject to an unlimited number of prosecutions and fines. This ordinance not only takes away the rights of pregnant people and the people who help them procure life-saving health care, but it effectively bans the actual transport of pregnant bodies. Comstock utilized postal roads and then highways as a tool to mediate control, and then highways became the defining organizing principle of the 20th century. This affected both abortion access and regulation. By the time the national system of interstate and defense highways was complete in 1992, 1.4 million American women procured legal abortions each year. Historically, this number has remained constant, whether abortion is legal or not. What decreases are the number of suicides, homicides, and healthcare-related deaths when abortion is legalized. Crisis pregnancy centers are another tool of surveillance organized around the road. I will refer to them in shorthand in my presentation as CPCs. And at CPCs, the well-being of birthing people generally does not matter. They set up next to abortion clinics, sometimes inside the same building as an abortion provider, or now in the offices of closed abortion providers, to deceive people and prevent them from obtaining abortions. Robert Pearson, the author of How to Start and Operate Your Own Pro-Life Outreach Crisis Pregnancy Center, founded the first CPC in the United States in 1967. His manual begins by comparing CPCs to car dealerships. A car dealer, when he's advertising, does not list the things his auto won't do, so why should we say we don't do abortions? In his seminal text that inspired much of the anti-abortion movement, Pearson advised anti-abortion activists to choose neutral-sounding names and show women a slideshow that includes misinformation about the health risks of abortion. A sample script for CPC volunteers was included in Pearson's manual. Question: do you do abortions? Answer: anything you need, we do here. Question: I want to have an abortion. Will you help me? Answer: we have so many ways to help a woman and will gladly help you. Have you had a test? We'll be glad to do one for you. According to abortion historian Dr. Jennifer Holland, CPCs exist primarily to increase the birth rate in white communities. However, they also target predominantly Black and brown neighborhoods so that white volunteers can victimize the non-white people they assist, while also casting white people as personal saviors. While CPCs proliferated in the late 60s and the 2000s, they operated on shoestring budgets. That changed shortly after 9/11 under George W. Bush's presidency. Federal grants doubled and tripled CPC annual operating budgets to promote abstinence-only education. By 2022, when Roe fell, CPCs recorded $1.4 billion in revenue and $344 million in government funding. Texas now runs the largest alternative to abortion program in the United States. Over $140 million in state funding has been diverted from federal temporary assistance programs for low-income families to crisis pregnancy centers. And new CPCs are well-funded and intentionally camouflaged, like this one, on West Texas A&M University's campus in the middle of public student housing. Its painfully white, new-build aesthetic and gentrified sign does not refer to its address or zip code. It refers to Bible verse 1330 from the Old Testament. Go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. Advertisements celebrating 1330's grand opening are visible from the Interstate, not too far from the Prohibit Abortion Trafficking billboard of the Sanctuary City for the Unborn campaign. 1330 fronts as a Christian coffee shop, but it's an extension of Hope and Choice, a crisis pregnancy center affiliated with CareNet, the second largest anti-abortion organization in the United States, founded by the Christian Action Council in 1975. At 1330, girls are discreetly tested for pregnancy, provided an ultrasound and prayer intervention, and given, quote, the choice to become hopeful about their pregnancy. If we zoom out and just look at a map of Texas, particularly closed abortion clinics, which are displayed here as little tombstones because there are 0 operating clinics left in the state, and crisis pregnancy centers, or CPCs, depicted here as stars or asterisks, CPCs are clearly pervasive and concentrated in city centers that used to provide abortion care, in the same places highway construction decimated communities of color through urban renewal campaigns using eminent domain. Nationally, CPCs now outnumber abortion providers 4-1. When we layer in highways, just focusing on highways coming out of Amarillo in this image, as well as rest stops, which are another point of surveillance I unpack more in my thesis, along with sanctuary city ordinances depicted here in brown and yellow for Amarillo's proposed legislation, we get a severely dizzying image of tangible surveillance, all born from systems of highway infrastructure. This presents 2 options for pregnant people: compulsory motherhood or criminalization. More than 60% of all abortions today happen through medication abortion, whether self-managing with the guidance of an abortion doula or traveling hundreds of miles to a clinic, The increased demand for care on a shrinking number of clinics translates to pregnant people paying thousands of dollars to self-administer in hotel rooms, near clinics. This is not too dissimilar from the roadside underground market of the 60s. The risk of death is less imminent, but the risk of criminalization is unprecedented. The citizen enforcement mechanism of these pieces of legislation are the most terrifying component. Here's a live feed of Interstate 40 in Amarillo streaming on the Texas Department of Transportation website. Any citizen can camp out, digitally or physically, to record the movements of suspected abortion traffickers. Hotlines staffed by elderly women who lost friends to botched abortions used to accompany people across state lines. Their phones are quiet now. They haven't received a single request for accompaniment since the Sanctuary City Ordinance legislation was introduced last year. Pregnant people are cutting off contact with their families and trusted community members to lower the risks of criminalizations to themselves and to the people that they love. In some cases, never mentioning their pregnancy and abortion until the person who got them pregnant dies. A few cases against women have been brought by the nurses who helped them. Most have been brought by ex-husbands and boyfriends. The settler geographies and ontologies of highways and the broader forces they gave shape to are diminishing our access to reproductive health care today. And now 6 million people with uteruses of reproductive age across the United States will drive a minimum of 200 miles to access critical health care. But us girls and non-binary people from Amarillo are rising up in solidarity with people in Palestine and across the world suffering at the hands of the American empire and its infrastructure. In Amarillo cafes and thrift shop bathrooms are repro kits concealed in takeout bags, which you see here, equipped with condoms, Plan B, and a guide to abortion pill-zine, put together by Texans who've had abortions, helped people access abortion, and trust people know what is best for themselves. I have copies of the zine here with me tonight. Please come find me if you would like one. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Worth sticking around for. Before we head out, we have some closing.